Okay, hello, and welcome to our Team Connect, Community Connect call. And my name is Cheryl Muller. I am one of your Diamond Uplines with the Wellness Co., Alita, Megan, and myself. So I see some new faces here, which I absolutely love. And I know tonight's a little bit of a crazy night because everyone's so excited that Alita is going to be on the corporate call. And she says it's going to be dynamite. Like, so I'm so excited. I was so excited, and I love that because when she's excited and she passes that energy to us, like I passed it along in my messages. You could definitely tell that I was excited about tonight's event. So, okay, so tonight it's going to be a little bit different. This is a podcast from Pastor Greg Groeschel. Okay, but he is a big leadership guru. Like I love his leadership books. He's written Winning the War in Your Mind, The Power of Change, Daily Power, Dangerous Prayers. I was like, Think Ahead is another. And I just love the way he blends, and I'm just going to use a general term here, right? Because of like spirituality, and just real life. He really blends it together, whatever your spirituality is. Okay. So he did a podcast, and there were a couple sections to it, and I'm just talking about one section, but I thought it was really interesting and it really a good one for January too, right? Because we're still thinking about what do we want this year to look like? What are my expectations? What kind of goals can I set? We're still in that mode, right? It's still January. Heck, you can set them anytime, but the general topic is you in 5 years, the power to change. Like that's the general for all. I think there are six different podcasts with this. So he really starts us out and he talks about, have you ever stopped to think about what your life will look like in 5 years? Like, what is my life going to look like 5 years from now? Now, we talk about that a lot in Plexus, but this is just a blanket. You know what? I'm going to think about what will it look like? And so I'm going to give you a couple different areas to look at because I like the way he broke it down. He talked about what we need to do is visualize it, and write things down. Spiritually, relationally, financially, and physically. That all makes up our life and our goals and what we want. And they're all different components. They weave together. But this was my favorite statement from him, because we talk about, oh, what do you want your life to look like? And okay, this is what he says. What is the trajectory that each of those categories is on, right? Like, what is the trajectory? And that's like path. That's a little different than some goal setting that we've done before. So, okay, so I'm just going to break it down just a little bit about what he talks about. So he says, with your spiritual life, whatever that is, based on what I'm doing now, okay, in 5 years, you're either going to be, your spirituality is going to be higher. For some people, you're going to be closer to God than maybe you've ever been before. And maybe you're feeling in tune with the universe or energy or whatever that is. For some people, it's like, oh, I'm going to read my Bible more. For other people, it's I'm getting into a devotion, right? My heart is just growing. I'm being directed by the Spirit, things like that. I'm making an impact on others, right? I'm reaching more people, right, than I ever have before. And for him, he says, I'm becoming more like Jesus. He goes, you can be on that trajectory, be at your peak, right? Or it maybe it's hit or miss what you do. You know, you don't even really pay attention. You're not even really praying anymore. You're not serving people in your life in general. You're really not reading anything that's filling your mind with what it should. Um, and you start creeping back into old habits, old sins he talks about, right? And maybe you're just not doing that great in 5 years. You've lost faith. You're back in some old patterns that you tried to get rid of before. You're just kind of lukewarm. You sporadically do anything, right? So those are the two different paths that you can be on. So what do you think your life will look like in 5 years spiritually? And one of the things that really stood out, this is just a thought that I had, that I just interjected in my notes. Here's the good thing. To me, the good news is what your life is like right now is based on what you've been doing for the 5 years previous, right? So if you don't like it, guess what? You have the ability to change it, because you can make decisions now and your next 5 years can be different. Like, isn't that the best news? Because everything that you've done, right, is where your life is right now. And it's based on, here we go. This is what I love about it. It's based on the habits that you've had up until this point, right? Habits. We talk about those, right? So, and in Atomic Habits, I did a whole series a couple of years ago on Atomic Habits. If you have not read that book, that's another great one. And he always says, don't ever miss a habit more than once, because if you miss a habit once, it's a mistake. If you miss it twice, it's a pattern. So, like, even in some chats that I've had, I've got a lot of new people. And this one person's like, oh, shoot me now. I ate a piece of Boston cream pie. I couldn't help myself. And now I feel sick. I said, you know what? You're just at the beginning. Guess what? For the rest of the day, eat like you're supposed to. You can stop it now. Like, don't say, I'll wait till tomorrow. Oh man, I'll wait till Monday to start eating right. I said, you can start right now. And she was like, oh my gosh, like she was so happy about that, and that's what we want to do. We want to serve our customers in that capacity. Okay, so the next one is relationally. Where will you be relationally in 5 years? Okay, so you can think about friends. Do you have, are you developing, and he says, God honoring friendships? Are you hanging out with people that level you up? Iron sharpens iron, right? And you just have really rich friendships. Or maybe you don't have very good friends, or those that you do have are not a good influence, right? And so you gotta think about your friends, but you could also think about like your family or your spouse or something like that. Maybe you're closer with them than ever before. Even you've got a high level of intimacy. He talks a lot about marriage and relationships. Like, he's really big with that as well. Or maybe you're barely talking to your spouse or your partner or whatever it is, and you don't even trust each other, right? And you're probably going to be divorced in 5 years and all those things. Like, which trajectory are you on in the next 5 years? So think about that. Okay, the next is financially. All right. So maybe you're going to be debt free and you don't have any more student loans or car payments or credit cards, or heck, maybe you paid your house off, right? Maybe you've just got some financial margin at the end of the month, like hallelujah, right? And you're able to just buy more groceries than ever before, or you're shopping in the organic section or whatever that might be. Or financially, are you still living paycheck to paycheck? Do you feel financial pressure? Because that affects other relationships as well. maybe you're just worse off than you were before. So what is your life going to look like in 5 years financially? Okay, so then what is your life going to look like in 5 years physically? All right. So maybe you're going to be healthier and stronger, and you've got more energy, and you're feeling better than ever before. You're making great choices with food or whatever, your nutrition, and um, or maybe you're just super tired and you can't get up off the couch, and you're just a slug, and you're unhealthy, and your eating habits are just crap, and you lack any energy, and it's just like, so what's the trajectory of your what you're going to be like in 5 years physically? So just stopping and taking a moment to review that. January is still a great time to do that. Look at your life in these categories. And I love the categories. I thought, okay, this is just a great little breakdown. And I like things broken down. It's easier for me to do if they're broken down. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I don't know where to start, right? So we all get that way. Goals, yeah, I want goals, but I don't know where to start. But this is a good place to start. So here's the thing. He also says, we have to acknowledge that sometimes there are external forces that we can do nothing about. But he says, yeah, there are those that we have no control. However, for the most part, right, we can predict what your life is going to look like in 5 years with pretty good accuracy, because the habits that you create today will shape who you become tomorrow. I thought this was super interesting. And tell me if you ever heard this before. I have not. He says, and I think somebody else said it, but he talked about it. So when you are born, you look like your parents. When you die, you look like your habits. I thought, he has all these one-liners that I'm like, yes. And I see you guys shaking your head. I'm like, yes, yes. Okay. All right. So the question is, do you like the direction that your habits are taking you, right? Like, think about that direction. Do you like the trajectory of your life based on your current habits? All right. And he talks about intentions don't determine direction. All right. We all want, fill in the blank, right? Fill in the blank. But he also says that hope alone doesn't change your life. Habits do. Okay. Here we go. I love it. I love that he talked about it. Maybe that's why I like this so much, because he tied it all into habits. All right, so let's see here, because I'm going to try and we got about 5 more minutes. Okay, so, all right. All right, I'm just going to skip ahead. He goes over, he does a whole recap of the 5 podcasts before, talking about just really spiritual principles, but he talks about who you are, your identity, why, why do you want to live your life, and why do you want it to look like it does in 5 years. The other is what who do you want to become based on who you want to become, why you want that, like what habit do you need to start. But the other interesting thing was that he talked about also, there's a what not. He did a series on what not. What habit do I need to stop doing? And I think sometimes that's the one for me. Like, what habit do I need to stop? Right. So that was one of the principles. And then he talked about how do we change? So, there are all, and I can even probably drop the podcast here too. And like today's podcast that I'm going over is talking about our impact, to finally drive home his message. And what he talks about, and this is the concept of sowing and reaping. And I think everybody has heard that concept. It's a farming concept as well. And over time, the seeds that you're sowing today will bring about the harvest that you have in the future. So again, your habits today shape who you become tomorrow. And it's a law. It's the law of sowing and reaping. So he says that really the law of sowing and reaping is broken down into three different aspects and that will take you in the direction that you want to go. Okay. You reap what you sow, you reap more than you sow, and you reap after you sow. All right. Okay, let's talk about, and I can go through these fairly quick. You reap what you sow, okay? If you reap a certain, if you reap a certain type of, if you plant a certain type of seed, you're going to reap a certain type of plant, right? You plant an apple seed, you get an apple tree. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. But here's the thing. If you are sowing bad habits, your harvest is not going to be good, right? Your harvest is going to be based on the bad habits that you do. If you are late for meetings, if you're late for work, if you have a bad attitude, and maybe you didn't get the promotion at work, and it's not because you're not promotable, right? And maybe if we're applying it even to plexus, maybe you didn't hit that rank or whatever, or maybe you didn't talk to enough people or whatever it is, right? It's not that you're not promotable, but it's because of the bad habits that you've been sowing. And again, think about all those categories. And I love what he said. It is not a punishment that you didn't get what you want. It's a harvest. It's a harvest based on your habits, right? What you planted, right? What we're doing, the actions that we're taking over and over again, right? If you don't like what you're reaping, then change what you're sowing. And again, relationships, spiritually, financially, physically, look at your habits and what you're planting. Okay, number two, you reap more than you sow. I love that. Like what we sow is multiplied. I'm just trying to, okay, so he then talks about the book, The Compound Effect. And he has his kids and like their significant others and everything. I think maybe it was that book that he has them read. But here's the thing. The compound effect talks about small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equal a radical difference. Ooh, that's good. I mean, it is a compounding fact. What you are sowing is going to be compounded. And it seems so basic, but it really is true. And here's the thing. What happens is sometimes, okay, I forget. Okay, I was just talking with my stepdaughter, and she just started going to the gym, and she's like, it's only been about 2 months. She goes, and finally I feel like something's happening. I'm like, yes. I'm like, that's true, because it seems like nothing is happening until all of a sudden something's happening, right? Maybe you're messaging and messaging and messaging and messaging, and it's like, oh, and then all of a sudden you filled your funnel, and it's like, whoa, the harvest happens, right? So that's that again, sowing and reap. Okay, so I'm gonna jump a smidge ahead because I want to get through this. Okay, and again, this is kind of going into the you reap after you sow, right? You plant in the spring and you harvest in the fall in general, right? We get impatient. We don't see the harvest right away. But here's the thing, small decisions matter. It's all the small decisions that we make. It's every action that we take determines our trajectory, the trajectory of where we're going. And so think about, like, what do you want your life to look like in 5 years? What can you put in place now? And don't say, oh my gosh, I have to exercise for 4 hours at the gym. That's not what we're talking about. It's the small, consistent steps that will pay off. So thank you for that kind of abbreviated version. I thought it was good. And what we, Alita wanted us to kind of stop about now, and we want you to send messages to everybody who you've invited to the opportunity event. Get yourself settled for that. And I just thank you so much for joining us tonight and being a part of a team. We really love you guys, and we will see you soon.